Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. Today we got a blockbuster trade in the NFL where both sides got equal returns and everyone came out a winner. Every team has benefited and everyone is happy. I'm clearly being sarcastic. The Rams traded Jalen Ramsey, the superstar quarterback, to the Dolphins in exchange for... Wait, let me check again. I want to say... No, let me check. Nothing! Absolutely nothing is what the Rams got in return for arguably the best cornerback in the league. Okay, they did get something. They got a third-round pick, and Hunter Long, who was a third-round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft as a tight end for the Miami Dolphins, who is now going to be the third-string tight end on the Rams. So very, very successful trade here for the Rams. But now let's look at it from the Dolphins' point of view. The Dolphins just got arguably the best cornerback in the NFL in Jalen Ramsey. He's reasonably young, he's expensive, but he's not crazy overpriced or anything. And they got him for a third-round pick and a third-string tight end who is never going to see an NFL field. Okay, he will see an NFL field, but is barely ever going to see an NFL field. So the Dolphins did pretty darn good here. They now have arguably the top two quarterbacks in the NFL. Not just the top cornerback duo, which they take by a mile, but individually the two best quarterbacks in the NFL with Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard. This is absolutely amazing with them, and I honestly think that they could have a shot at dethroning the Bills in winning the division and potentially even the conference with the roster they have. They have multiple stars on their defensive line with Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips, and most importantly, Bradley Chubb. On the secondary, you now have Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, as well as safety Javon Holland. You've got a solid offensive line, although they could use one extra piece. But they still have Tron Armstead and Connor Williams. They have two superstar wide receivers in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Two top 10 wide receivers and two top 10 cornerbacks on this team. You've got a superstar quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. And a running back room that needs a slight improvement, but that can easily be fixed through free agency and the draft. But now they have such an amazing roster. It is hard for me to get over how good this roster is right now. Like I said, I think they have a legitimate shot at winning the Super Bowl this next year with that roster. Plus a couple more improvements in free agency and the draft picks they have left. The Dolphins have shown that they are trying to become the next Rams. They are not scared of trading away all their draft capital if it means they get really good players. And for the Rams, it proved to be a good strategy. The Rams did win a Super Bowl. Speaking of the Rams, what the heck just went on for the Rams? They traded arguably the best cornerback in the NFL. A guy who only a couple of years ago they traded for two first-round picks, for a third-round pick, and a guy that's barely going to see the NFL field. He might not even make your 52-man roster. So we can just exclude Hunter Long here already. Basically, you're trading the best cornerback in the NFL for a third-round pick. And you could say, hey, Dylan, obviously the cornerback position isn't worth as much as the quarterback position. Maybe it's becoming more devalued. But we can look at Jalen Ramsey's trade just a couple years back when the Jaguars garnered 2 first-round picks from the Rams for him. So now they're turning around and trading him for a 3rd-round pick? What the heck? This makes no sense to me. Jalen Ramsey should be worth at least 1 first-round pick. Multiple first-round picks would be a bit much, but 1 first-round pick would definitely be sufficient. And at least if the Rams were going to demand such a low asking price for picks, they could have gone for a player that was slightly better than Hunter Long. Someone such as, I don't know, Jalen Phillips. He's been solid, but he hasn't completely found his groove. I'm sure Jalen Phillips in a 2nd rounder would have been a low return for Jalen Ramsey, but more solid than this. Hunter Long and a 3rd round pick. So at least they could have pulled a better player out of this. But no, Hunter Long, like I said, a guy who's not even certainly going to make their 52-man roster. Probably not going to be their starting tight end, or even their number 2 tight end. I mean, seriously, Les Snead, what went through your head? I used to respect you. You built your roster up through trades and managed to win a Super Bowl. Every little piece has to come together correctly to win a Super Bowl. And the Rams managed to do that. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They traded for Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp managed to break out into a superstar. Aaron Donald was still a superstar player. Trade for Von Miller. Trade for Sony Michel. They made plenty of trades. They did very well. I was happy with the Rams because Les Snead had built this roster up the right way. Instead of relying on picks that may or may not be busts, he just traded those picks for proven players. Obviously, quickly enough, then the Rams are going to fall out of favor and not do so well because they trade a bunch of picks for older players, like we saw this year. But hey, they won the Super Bowl after all that, so it is completely worth it. But now, he's sitting here, he traded a superstar quarterback for a 3rd round pick. Him of all people, Les Snead, should know the value of picks. He is the one that's been traded multiple 1st rounders or later picks for so many other players. I do not get it. It makes no sense to me. What the heck went through the Rams' heads? The Dolphins must be sitting here right now dying of laughter because they just stole one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback in the NFL for nothing. I mean, I thought the DeAndre Hopkins trade was awful. You were taking one of the best receivers in the NFL for a 2nd round pick and a mediocre running back. But this is significantly worse. Jalen Ramsey is arguably better than DeAndre Hopkins was when he was traded. And yet, Jalen Ramsey got traded for less. I get that receivers tend to be worth more than cornerbacks, but even still, this just hurts me so much. And yet, from the perspective of the Dolphins, I have to applaud this so much. They just managed to orchestrate a trade where they traded for the best cornerback in the NFL, I would argue, for nothing. Just a 3rd round pick. Someone that's likely never to make an impact in the NFL. So this is absolutely amazing on the part of the Dolphins. I have got to applaud them so much here. They have done amazing. Obviously, last year they traded for Tyreek Hill. But that was a fair return because the Chiefs know what they're doing. And they managed to win the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. But it was still a great addition from the part of the Dolphins. They also acquired Bradley Chubb for a 1st round pick. Another fair return. But I would argue Jalen Ramsey is 100 times better than Bradley Chubb. And yet he got a 3rd round pick. Why? How did this does not make sense to me whatsoever from the part of the Rams. And yet I am mind blown on the part of the Dolphins as well because of how well they did. So this means that the Rams are truly rebuilding now. Of course, they don't have any picks from this to increase the rebuild, but even still, they're trading away their better players. So you wonder for the Rams, who's next? I don't think Matthew Stafford has that much trade value, especially given that you only traded for him a couple years ago. Also, he's 35. He just missed the latter part of the season due to a neck injury, which is never a good injury. But you've got Aaron Donald, who is still a very, very good defensive tackle. One of the best in the league, if not the best in the league, who could easily serve as a trade chip. And maybe you could get a bit more for him than Jalen Ramsey, a third-round pick. There's also Cooper Kupp, who would be an interesting trade chip. He just signed an extension, but he is an amazing receiver, and there are plenty of receiving-needing teams this year. So I'm sure Cooper Kupp would go in a second, especially at the price the Rams are selling their players at. So it'll be interesting to see what the Rams do moving forward. Will they try and build up the roster somehow, even though they just trade away one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and they really only have 3 notable players left, one of them whom I think is overrated, so really 2 good players left in Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald? We'll see. But it would make more sense if they were to continue to trade away players and aim to get the number 1 overall pick, which will likely be Caleb Williams in the 2024 NFL Draft, who would be an interesting successor to Matthew Stafford, and I would really like to see with Sean McVay. To wrap it all up, the Dolphins did absolutely amazing on this trade. This is one of the best trades in history from their perspective. Meanwhile, the Rams did absolutely awful on this trade. This is one of the worst trades in history from their perspective. But we will have to see where it all goes. NFL free agency starts tomorrow. Well, technically it's the negotiating period, but players still agree to contracts. So we'll start to find out which direction teams are going tomorrow. And I suspect we will see more trades coming soon. So I will likely see you in 24 hours. Thanks for watching.